Happy Monday and welcome into the PHNX Sun Devils show. I'm Anthony Totri, joined part-time by Shawn DePaz. There it is. Shawn, before the show started, we both were like stretching like we were 50-year-old men.
as soon as it got to like 2 years.
That was tough, though. That was tough, man. Obviously, we got back from Vegas this past weekend, but how was the rest of your weekend? What'd you do?
I mean, it was pretty good. Had brunch yesterday, which was good. A place at Old Town. Just kind of hung out. It was a lazy Sunday.
What place?
What place?
Daily Dose.
Oh.
Okay. I've heard of that place. Oh, I had the best breakfast of my
good.
life yesterday.
What'd you?
The best, so I went to, I think it was Morning Squeeze.
I was hoping you were going to say, I went to Denny's.
No. Morning
I know you're
Squeeze,
not
they
hot
have
guy.
a carne asada,
Ooh.
eggs Benedict.
Ooh.
And it was so
Yeah, baby. I had a
elite.
steak and potato bowl, and it was pretty bomb.
It was so elite, dude.
That sounds good. What I really liked about this place is it had grilled biscuits. So then, and I asked for honey, and she just gave me like the full bear. Like she put the full bear
Give you a
on my
full thing of
my
honey.
table, and I was able to just take the biscuit and pour some on with each bite. It was money,
I respect
dog.
that.
It
I
was
respect
money.
that. All right. Enough about breakfast because it is lunchtime, almost dinner time. And we're going to talk Arizona State. Arizona State.
It's closer to lunchtime than it is dinner time.
Yeah. I give you that.
I would
give
argue
you
that it is
Yeah.
still in lunchtime.
Yeah. It's
Unless you're 80 years old and you eat lunch at 4 o'clock.
True.
That is true.
And breakfast was like 3 hours ago, 4 hours ago, probably, or lunch.
Yeah, it depends. It
10:30
really
lunch.
depends. Arizona State defense.
Yes.
They had their media day today. So we're able to hear from a bunch of different players, Torrence, Trey Brown, etc. I do want to get into just the specifics of Brian Ward's defense, the expectations for that defense, some standouts, because obviously this is a team in Arizona State where it felt like the defense was a liability last season,
Yeah.
right? Specifically, the run defense was a huge issue for the Sun Devils. Donnie Henderson, phenomenal person, phenomenal. I was going to say coach, but
Hard to argue that one.
The numbers don't really point in that direction. But
Better than Glenn Thomas, though, probably.
better than Glenn Thomas, though. But Brian Ward specifically, obviously a guy that you are familiar with just with his time over at Syracuse.
Yes, sir.
we've-
Dino Babers made.
We'll get into the numbers here in just a little bit, but as somebody that was a fan of a team who had Brian Ward on that coaching staff, what was that defense like that you remember at least?
I mean, it's tough because he's obviously, or no, I guess not obviously, but the reality is he's coaching with much less talent. But
At Syracuse.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's significantly less talent than he had either here or his last stop. But I mean, the Syracuse had a few dogs. I think what you saw is that. And something that I think is going to be very important for this team is it was a defense that they never quit. That's for damn sure.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember exactly the years he was there. But I would say the one thing that you could the defense, if anything, was consistent.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not always great, but it was consistent. You knew what to expect, which was great for a Syracuse team that had a wildly inconsistent offense. Yeah, man. I mean, it was a defense that won games they probably weren't supposed to.
Yeah.
And I think that is crucial for this defense because, I mean, we're going to talk about it later. This conference is deep, man. There's there's some scary offenses. Obviously, everyone knows what USC is. So they're going to have to kind of steal some games. And I think you've seen that a little bit in his tenure at Syracuse.
Yeah, so Ward was with Syracuse in 2017, 2018, and what he did to that defense was pretty ridiculous. And again, to your point of the whole discrepancy in talent at Syracuse, more talent at Washington State
For sure.
and at Arizona State. Right, so that defense, 2017, 2018, led the nation in turnovers forced in 2018, forced more turnovers in 2017 and 2018 than any other FBS team in the nation, and finished in the top 15 in third down defense. Syracuse was also top 6 nationally in 2018 in turnovers gained, interceptions, fumbles recovered, and sacks, while also setting the school record for sacks. He helped develop 6 players into all Atlantic Coast Conference selections during his time.
Yeah, and they were all players no one's heard of, which I think is probably a good sign for this defense. Like I said, he was really good at, I think, bringing out the best out of a unit that was not incredibly talented.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But and obviously the ACC is, the quarterbacks that are playing in the ACC. Like, I'm not a Drake May guy, but I mean, like, this is a team that beat a number 1 ranked Clemson team in the Dome and held them to 17 points, I believe, in that game, or 20 points, something like that. So, if you remember, that was in the Clemson's peak. So, it's a pretty good. He obviously, like I said, he did a lot with a team that was not all that talented. I went to Syracuse for football or for basketball. Like, that's a basketball school, and he gave that the students, students. I don't know why the student body, I guess, like something to be excited about as far as football was concerned. And like Syracuse is a hard place to do that because it's such a basketball focused school. You do that. I mean, that is not the case at ASU. Like, basketball has its spot, obviously, but I would argue that when both teams are good, this is a football school. Yeah. It's a hockey school and a bat and ball school more than anything, I would say. But as far as those two are concerned, it is a football school. So if you can get the student section excited, then
there's nothing more fun than a college football defense that is a just dominant, full-blown like unit, right?
Yeah.
You look at, and again, you teased it a little bit. We're going to get into just how deep this conference is a little bit later. And you could make an argument the reason why this conference isn't necessarily as deep as the SEC is because the lack of defense across the board, right? SC obviously is going to have a pretty ridiculous offense this year. Oregon's going to have a good offense this year. But you look at pretty much everybody else, right? I would argue that Utah has an average offense, but their defense is really what pushes them forward. Oregon State, another team with a great defense. And then you look in the SEC where it's LSU, Georgia, Alabama, arguably 3 top 5 defenses right there, right? And that's offense entertains, defense wins championships. And that, I think, when you look back at last year's team for Arizona State and you look at what Trenton Bourguet was able to accomplish just in a handful of games, which is why I have a little bit of an issue with people trying to write him off already, is the numbers that he was able to put up with an inexperienced play caller, a shaky offensive line, and
an inexperienced play caller that was just thrown into it. It's not like that in off season.
Yeah. And mind you, Bourguet was kind of pushed into the fire when Emory Jones got hurt.
Yeah.
Right. So, again, for a guy to throw 300, 400 passing yards, and then at the end of it, the defense is not really helping him out at all.
Yeah.
I think that's why you're going to see a completely different Arizona State team
You don't even
this year.
Need this. Well, yeah. But the defense doesn't even need to be like significantly better. Like, I just need to be at any point be confident that they might make a stop, because that was not the case last year. Like, anytime you're like, the offense better score here, because every time that the offense failed to score, it felt like the other team scored. Like, it felt like
you didn't have confidence.
Oh, well, okay, now we've turned the ball over at the 50-yard line, and now here's this offense is going to score. Like, and you had to rely on the offense to win a shootout. And I think you said it the other day, most of the time Trenton Bourguet is the kind of quarterback that's not going to win or lose you a game. So getting in shootouts is probably not the best idea. And obviously, he did, I guess, against Washington. But outside of that, like, they're just not a team that's really built to win shootouts, especially if, again, I think Trenton's probably the starter here, but especially with the kind of quarterback that Trenton Bourguet is, you need the defense to get at least a couple stops, or at least give the offensive confidence that they might get a stop.
Yeah, exactly. You don't need this for ASU to be a bowl team this year. They don't need to have the number 1 defense in the conference by any means. They just need to be better than what they were last year. Again, specifically when it comes to run defense. Taking a look at the Donnie Henderson defense last year, right, versus Brian Ward's defense at Washington State last year, right? In team defense, the ASU defense was 9th last season. The Washington State defense and team defense was 3rd. The run defense for ASU was, again, 9th. The run defense for Washington State, 6th. Again, a big improvement. And you look at the run defense, you're talking about total yards here.
Yeah.
That difference is about 60 yards per game. ASU has given up roughly 180 rush yards per game, which is just completely unacceptable for a Power 5 team, in my personal opinion. In terms of rushing touchdowns, Washington State was 2nd best in the conference to ASU 10th. They obviously were atrocious in terms of run defense. Forced turnovers. ASU was just 9th. Washington State was 3rd. Points per game, the Sun Devils were 9th, and Washington State was 3rd. So you see the trend here that, I mean, Washington State's defense was significantly better than Arizona State last season in a bunch of categories that probably would have pushed ASU to a 500 season last year.
Yeah, and I mean, Washington State is a good team, a good program, obviously, and I think the roster is better than ASU's. But I mean, there's still these. It's not like we're comparing an SEC school to a Pac-12 school. We're comparing 2 Pac-12 schools. Like, the talent is somewhat comparable, and it's not like they didn't have anybody on that defense last year. Like, Rowe is back, Jordan's back. Like, and I mean, they had Soley and Merlin Robinson last year. So like, it's not like there wasn't talent on the defense last year. But I mean, Bobby saying in the chat, like, it was not exactly the most confusing defense. Like,
it wasn't a very exotic defense.
Yeah, it wasn't. There wasn't a whole lot of complexity to it. And I think if you have smart players, which I think this defense does, so again, like I was saying about his time at Syracuse, like I think the way he coaches defense, the complexity he brings to it, allows the defense to play beyond its talent on paper.
Yeah.
And like we were saying, if you could do that with this defense, which, I mean, obviously there's questions, there's a lot of turnover, particularly in the front seven, I guess. But if you can get this defense to just play a little bit better than they are, and again, the offense we keep talking about is going to be, I mean, there's weapons for days.
It's going to be improved.
And it's similar with the offense. Like, it's going to be more complex as well. So I think on both sides of the ball, it's going to be a team that plays above their talent. And I mean, man, with especially on the offense, that offense is talented as it is. So if you can get both sides of the ball to play above their talent, it's going to be a tough team to beat. Not saying it's going to be like a dangerous team or a really good team, but they're not going to make it easy, like they did at times last year, to beat them. Yeah.
Look, we've got a bunch of standouts, potential standouts, both returners, transfers, freshmen that I do want to get into. But before we do that, guys, I want to tell you where you can go get some free money, and that is over at BetMGM. They do this really cool thing, this promotion still going on with the Swing for the Fences. Like, it's pretty much a video game on a sports betting app, which I say just about every day. I have never seen, and still to this day, even though they've been running this promotion now for, I want to say, a little over a month, maybe a month and a half, I have not seen anybody else try and like do a video game like that, for a sportsbook app. It's one of the coolest things, and it's super easy to use, guys. Just log in to BetMGM Sportsbook app on iOS or Android and play the BetMGM MLB free-to-play game from May 27th through September 7th, so there's still plenty of time to try it out. You can be a batter and pick an area of the strike zone, and depending on the area of the strike zone you pick, you're going to get either a single, double, triple, home run, or pop out and receive the prize associated with that type of hit. It's played once a day. Pricing does have to be used on MLB and expires in a 24-hour period. Pretty sure I got a double today, which means I get I want to say a parlay boost.
Yeah, that sounds right.
So looking forward to that. And guys, if you haven't signed up yet for BetMGM, use that bonus code PHNX. There's a few different offers depending on where you live, but for our Arizona audience, guys, place your first bet offer and receive up to $1,000 back in bonus bets. If it loses with BetMGM, again, make sure use that bonus code PHNX. Check out the show notes for full details. And now listen to Shane talk about the disclaimer.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Colorado, D.C., Illinois, Indiana, Kansas, Louisiana, Maryland, Mississippi, New Jersey, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, Wyoming. Call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369 New York. Call 1-800-327-5050 Massachusetts. 21 plus to wager. Please gamble responsibly. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP Arizona. 1-800-522-4700 Nevada. 1-800-BETS-OFF Iowa. 1-800-270-7117 for confidential help Michigan. 1-800-981-0023 Puerto Rico. In partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. Visit BetMGM.com for terms and conditions. U.S. promotional offers not available in D.C., Kansas, Nevada, New York, or Ontario.
Ontario. You can't get 4 Peaks in Ontario, but you can get it right here in the great state of Arizona. And as always, we love our friends over at 4 Peaks. I mean, we were, like you mentioned, we were obviously just in Vegas, and after those long days, sometimes you want to just sit down at a blackjack table. Shout out Ashley. Actually, not shout out Ashley. Shout out Soon.
Is that the first one?
Yeah.
Yeah, she was such a sweet lady.
She was. Yeah. Shout out Jiang Long. Not for you, because you struggled with Jiang Long.
Was that the lady that took all my money?
No. Jiang Long was the guy that replaced the lady that took all your money, and when you bought back in, took all your money again.
I don't want to talk about that.
Yeah. But it would have gone down a lot. It would have gone down a lot nicer if you had a 4 Peaks.
That's true. It always does.
So get yourself a 4 Peaks. As always, they're always supporting the teachers. Teacher Tuesdays. If you're a teacher. Yeah, exactly. If you're a teacher, tomorrow bring your ID, your teacher's ID to Four Peaks 8th Street Pub. Get $4 pints of Kilt Lifter, Wow, Hazy, Hop Knot. They're amazing. As always, check them out at Four Peaks Brew or at Four Peaks Pub to keep up with the latest at Arizona's hometown brewery. But you must be 21 or older to drink Four Peaks, and please drink responsibly.
All right, let's get into some of the standouts that we've got for the upcoming season for the Arizona State defense. Actually, before we get into the 5 standouts that I've got here, why don't we give some honorable mentions? Because I feel like there's a couple of guys that are on this or that are not on this list that definitely are worth noting. And I want to start with a guy, D. Ford, transferred from Austin Peay to Arizona State in the offseason. He's a guy that if you talk to any of the players on the defense, a guy that is, you ask him who stood out, maybe surprised him, and D. Ford tends to be that answer. A guy at defensive back that I just don't think is getting enough love, and that's because you got guys like Ro Torrence and Jordan Clark already kind of pegged to play in the secondary. But D. Ford is going to be a guy that probably surprises some people, right? Even talking about some of the transfers, he's not a guy that gets a lot of love.
Yeah.
Xavier Alford's another one.
Yeah, that's the guy. That's the name I was just going to mention.
I mean, 100-yard landlord. Like,
yes, sir.
Come on now.
I mean,
him.
Is that UFC for a reason?
Yeah, absolutely. Clayton Smith, another one who I think is just a ball of potential that everyone's kind of just waiting to see what he's like on the field. I love comparing him to one of my favorite Sun Devils of all time in Karan Crump, just because they're built pretty similar. They're both just built like, what's the best way? They're built like predators. Yeah, no, I feel you. That's I'm trying to find like the reason we've got Junkyard Dog in the thumbnail is because that's, I mean, some of the guys on this Arizona State defense are going to be JYDs, just guys that they're just animals. Dogs. They're dogs out there. And I think he certainly has the potential to be one of the best players, not only on the defense, but I'll go out and say that I think he has the potential to be one of the best pass rushers in this conference. Okay. In this scheme too, I think it's certainly going to be interesting to watch. Do you have any honorable mentions? I
don't know honorable mentions, but just I guess like some of the freshmen that I'm interested in seeing if they're able to have any kind of impact. Ashley Williams, Montana Warren, Keith Abney, like if any of those kids are able to have any kind of impact, because if you can get if this team can get any kind of production from freshmen, I think that's going to be huge. Obviously, not just for this year, but for a couple of years to come. So I'm just really interested to see if any of those freshmen. I mean, we talked about it when we were out at practices. Ashley Williams is just a unit of a dude already, and he's a freshman, man. Yeah, like so to see if he just based on just pure physical potential is able to have any kind of impact would be interesting. And then, I mean, defensive backs, man, there's always stuff always happens in the defensive back. Someone's always getting hurt. I feel like there's always an opportunity for somebody to make an impact. So if either of, Keith Abney, Montana Warren ever get a shot, who knows what they'll be able to do. So I just, again, not necessarily honorable mentions, but I'm just interested to see what a lot of if any of these freshmen can have some kind of impact. Yeah.
I do want to give a little bit of love to CJ Fight, because this is a guy that, again, He's showed flashes in the spring. Again, you talk to anybody. I want to say Chris Cartman, a Sun Devil source, asked the question today, just like, who is the strongest guy on the team? Pound for pound, it's probably Scadaboo. But when anybody talks about strength in the weight room, Cullen Fight is a guy that everybody brings up. I think there was videos posted of him just squatting a ridiculous amount. Again, he's a true freshman. He's 6'1", 297 pounds. He is a unit of a freshman. Okay,
that's a inch shorter than me and like a full 100 pounds heavier than me.
And get this, right? Combined to make 94 total tackles and 23 tackles for loss and 8 sacks over a 21-game span during his sophomore and junior seasons. Also had an interception, a forced fumble, a fumble recovery, and 4 hurries.
Sounds good.
He's pretty damn good. Oh, yeah, by the way, he wasn't doing that in like Maine or like Washington. He was doing that in Texas. Where they eat, breathe, and sleep football. Yeah. So Cullen Fight has the potential to be one of the best players on this defense. And again, he's a freshman. But taking a look at the 5 that we've got in terms of potential standouts, I want to start number 5, Michael Matus, a guy coming back from injury. Obviously missed all last season with a knee injury. He is one of the veteran leaders on this team, which I was it obviously was such a big hit for ASU's front seven last year, losing him. I think you saw that in the way that they played. We talked a little bit about just not seeing them really get any pressure. This is a guy that can certainly not only give you the veteran leadership of it, but coming back from injury, he's got a chip on his shoulder. He's got something to prove, and everybody's asking questions of what this front seven is going to look like.
Yeah.
I think Michael Matus might have some of the answers.
Yeah, I agree. And I think you mentioned the leadership. Like that's the big thing for me. Obviously, Jordan Clark is going to be one of the leaders on this defense, but I mean, he was here last year as well. And losing Solely, there's obviously a little bit of a vacuum as far as leadership. And I mean, the linebacker, as far as the front seven is concerned, like I said earlier, it's a complete crapshoot. There's so many new faces there. So to have a guy who's been a part of this program there to kind of provide that leadership, I think is going to be huge. And then, obviously, if you can get production from him and he's able to bounce back from this injury in like a massive way, like you said, it answers one of those big questions of where are you going to get that production on the defensive line specifically. I think it makes a lot of sense to kind of, when you're asking that question, to look here first. Yeah,
most definitely. Moving to number 4, the guy that pretty much since he stepped foot at ASU, everybody's been talking about.
JC?
Trey Brown.
Oh, Trey Brown.
Look, 49 total tackles last year. And he brings the experience of playing in this defense, transferring over from Washington State. He is just a dog.
Yeah.
He's much bigger than I thought he was. I want to say he's about 6'3", which ASU's linebackers in the past haven't necessarily been that big. Kyle Soley wasn't that big. And Merlin was a little bit lengthier than Kyle Soley, but Trey Brown is built like a guy that your running back and your fullback, if you have one on your roster in 2023, is scared of. He's just built. He's built kind of like he's built like a Prius. that's pretty. He's a Prius in the front seven. And again, we talked about leadership. He brings it in a different way. Again, playing in Brian Ward's defense, playing under a guy in AJ Cooper, right? Like that is certainly going to be valuable. Maybe not early on in the season, where there are games that ASU is predicted and projected to win. But when you get into just dogfights at the end of the season or midway through, and there's guys that are tired and they don't know what to necessarily do, your mind's kind of going haywire and you're like, okay, well, I'm not familiar with this defense, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, you're in meetings, you're in practice, whatever, but it's another thing to go out there and
100%.
execute that defense. He's got that experience, and I think Trey Brown is going to be one of the most valuable pieces to this defense.
Yeah, and I mean, this isn't like a lot of the transfers, which is, I mean, like all due respect to them, but like a lot of these transfers are either coming from places where they didn't get a lot of opportunity or they're coming from like lower levels. It's not necessarily the case with him. Like he produced at Washington State. He had he had a career year last year as far as tackles are concerned. So like he's played, and then obviously, like you said, he's played in this exact system under this exact coach. That's, I think, invaluable for a team that not is just undergoing a new or implementing a new system, but like I was been saying, has so many new faces.
Yeah.
I think again, exactly what you said, like that, the leadership it provides in that sense, is again, I think, invaluable for this defense.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting to see him in an ASU uni. Moving on to number 3, you got B.J. Green here. This guy 7.5 sacks in the last 2 seasons. And I've got a note listed. He's just wired a little different, right? And you know why I say that is because he is a guy that was a walk-on at a certain point, earned his way on the roster, and ever since then, he's I don't want to say the lifeblood of the ASU defensive line, but he has been another invaluable piece that has he's been different for them. When Nesta went down at a certain point last season, you got BJ Green. Yeah. Or when you look for somebody, this is the best way to describe BJ Green. If you watch an Arizona State football game and you hit a certain point last year where you're just like, damn, this unit can't get any pressure. They can't force a sack. The quarterback has all day, and you just need somebody to come up big. It was BJ Green.
Yeah.
And it says something about a person, specifically a football player, when you are a walk-on and you earn your spot not only on the roster, but in the rotation.
Yeah. And I mean, not just led the team in sacks as a freshman.
Yeah.
Like, so, I mean, yeah.
Do you have the list of the other guys that did that?
Merlin, Junior
There you go.
Anyali, and Terrell Suggs.
Yeah.
Those other 3 guys are all 4-star recruits.
And then you got the walk-on.
Yeah. And BJ was a 3-star recruit, to be fair.
Yeah.
He was a walk-on, but he was a 3-star recruit. But still, 3-star recruits and 4-star recruits are...
There's a big difference.
There's a big difference, yeah. Yeah, the star does mean a lot. So, yeah, I mean, like you said, just wired different. And, I mean, he's one of the only guys in this front 7 that knows what it's like to produce in a Sun Devil uniform.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Hopefully that brings with him a certain amount of confidence, and I think again, confidence is gonna be pretty key for this defense because, and him in particular, because again, this defense did not produce last year, so the guys that are returning, it's obviously a pretty big year. So we'll see if he's able to kind of again be a leader as far as production is concerned in this defense, but. Again, like I said, knowing what it's like to produce in a Sun Devil uniform, I think it has a certain amount of value that it's going to provide this defense.
Absolutely. Moving on to number 2, you want to talk about somebody that's capable of providing in a Sun Devil uniform. The one, the only Jordan Clark. We had the luxury of talking with him over at Pac-12 Media Day, and this is
what a dude.
He's a hell of a person,
yeah,
and a hell of a football player. Obviously, his dad playing in the NFL, and you want to talk about somebody that's wired just again a little bit different. I think one of the standout points of him at Pac-12 Media Day was him telling his pregame ritual story of how he watches the same highlight tape of his dad, and his favorite one is I forget who it was.
Willis McGahee.
Yeah, where he made Willis McGahee go to sleep,
and he went to sleep too.
But again, that's just like
shows you the kind of dude he is.
You gotta he's a defensive back, and again, this is I feel like hard to find in this age of football. Is to find a defensive back that not only isn't afraid of contact, but that seeks out contact.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is the kind of guy, like, obviously he's younger, but you could tell that this is the kind of guy that was made in the image of his dad's
of
Steelers
that era
defense.
of football.
And like, it was hard hitting and cutthroat, and he's just a wrecking ball of a dude. And I think another thing that speaks to what kind of person he is, he talked about it at Pac-12 Media Day, like, he didn't need to be doing all this. Like he grew up with a very privileged life, as he acknowledged, and he did this because he really wanted it. Like he started doing doing workouts with his dad, and his dad told him that he could quit at any time. And he did, and he didn't, right? Like he got all the way here because he loves the game, and he loves not just the game, but the physicality. He loves everything that comes with the game. And I think, again, that's a great thing to have in a leader and a great thing to have in a football player. And like, I feel like he's so important to this team as far as leadership is concerned. It very rarely gets talked about how good of a fucking football player he is.
Yeah,
like he's probably the best defensive back on this team, if not the second best behind Rowe. Like,
certainly the most proven.
Yeah, exactly. So like, this is your best defensive player most likely, and also your leader. So yeah, I mean, in my mind, he is the most, and I know we're going to talk about the other guy in a second, but in my mind, he is the most important player on this defense.
Yeah, look, JC is a guy that when ASU defensively is doing things right, it's more often than not because of him.
And he's the kind of guy that makes plays that you notice, right? Like, I mean, a secondary, like obviously you usually noticing the secondaries that make plays, but he's the kind of guy that makes plays that provide the defense with some energy.
Yeah.
And I think, that's a super valuable thing, especially with all these home games, man. Like if JC's coming and he's delivering some kind of big hit or make some kind of play, interception, whatever, and he's going to have all these opportunities to get the home crowd into it, like that is going to be super valuable too.
Yeah, most definitely. Moving on to the last player in this list. Roe Torrence. I mean, and he's got it listed at 210. He said he lost about 10 pounds in the offseason. So about 6'3", 200 pounds, says he's in the best shape of his life, which is a scary, scary thing for opposing offenses, given what he did for Arizona State last year. Look, the reason Roe Torrence is number one on this list ahead of JC is because, in my mind, to have a cornerback at 6'3", that is, it's a huge difference maker in and of itself. I have nothing but full confidence that Brian Ward, and in this system, you can look to Roe Torrence to just be like, okay, you have him all game. Don't let him do anything. And Roe is going to make sure that happens.
Yeah, I mean, if he's losing a little weight, is a little quicker too, and obviously just has this incredible physical tools that you're not finding in most defensive backs. Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think he has an opportunity to have a terrific year. And like we were talking about earlier with Brian Ward's defense, if this defense is confusing offenses, confusing quarterbacks, and quarterbacks are making a few more mistakes or they're under more pressure, it's going to give Rowe an opportunity to be even more important.
Yeah.
I think. So, yeah, I mean, like you have written here, he is the every opportunity to, or at least the potential to be this team's number one defensive back and this team's most important defensive player. Because if you have a dude that's 6'3", 200 pounds, just absolutely locking it down in the secondary, like even most SEC schools can't say they have a guy like that. So it is certainly the ability to be like an absolute game wrecker in the secondary.
Yeah, and you bring up, I mean, a phenomenal point, right? Seeing what he was able to do last year when it felt like quarterbacks had all day.
Exactly.
And now you get a defensive system that is quite literally built on the idea of chaos and pressure that spells nothing but good things for the secondary. So it's certainly going to be exciting. Again, that is our list of standouts. Not to say that any of the guys that we mentioned before can't make their way to the top.
Yeah, like we said, this defense has got so many new faces. Who knows necessarily who's going to be
so many mysteries.
Stand up. Yeah.
Right. Burrito Express, though, not a mystery at all, guys.
Well, it's kind of a mystery as to which one you're going to order.
That is true. That is true. You know what? That is totally fair, because when I walked in the office this morning, there was the 4 bags or 5 bags or whatever of burritos, and there was the bean and cheese, there was a machaca hot, there was the burrito, the breakfast supreme, and I pulled the breakfast supreme out of the bag, and Max was sitting there eating his machaca hot burrito. And I put the BSB back and grabbed the machaca hot because it spoke to me.
You don't know until you know.
It spoke to me at the moment. Guys, Burrito Express, they have locations all over the valley. And the food, it's so damn good. It is so damn good. Like, I don't know a better way.
What a way to start your week.
I don't know a better way to tell you than that. Like, quite literally, they bring burritos on Monday, 20-some odd burritos. Those things are gone the next day because everybody in this office, they're a bunch of savages for Burrito Express.
Can confirm.
Because they're so damn good. If you don't believe us, go check it out for yourself. Like I said, locations all over the valley. Check them out and follow them on social at Burrito EXP.
Again, we went to Vegas recently. And what was the first thing we did before we left?
We stopped actually at 2 Circle Ks.
We did.
2 Circle Ks, double the snacks.
Double the snacks. Duh. Joe, yes, we did leave Shane at the pool.
He's tanning right now.
Yeah, he's just getting a little tan on, refining those tan lines. But Circle K, crucial for any given road trip.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, obviously, we got to fuel up. I'm not trying to get stranded out in the desert. But also, you need to snack up. I was walking some almonds. They got these wasabi soy sauce almonds. Oh, baby. I love me. Man, I love me some wasabi, and I love me some almonds, dog.
The beatboxes were good, too. They got a deal on those.
They got a deal on beatboxes that got us, made our Friday night pretty good.
It did. Most certainly.
That dinner we had pretty good. Oh, God. We had a hell of a dinner Friday night.
Such a hell of a dinner.
And Four Peaks, Circle K is a hell of a gas station. You can't get Four Peaks there. Again, don't miss out on all the great deals they have to offer. Right now, if you text PHNX to 31310, you'll join their SMS subscriber club and get a buy one, get one free offer on 32-ounce Polar Pops. Head to circlek.com/store-locator to find the Circle Ks near you.
Do it. All right.
Do it right now.
Let's zoom out of the Arizona State bubble that we're in. We're going to have a lot more Arizona State football talk tomorrow because there's another media day tomorrow with the offense. So hopefully we're going to have some sound for you guys tomorrow on that. But for now, there was an interesting question on social media, and I want to get chat's perspective on this as well. So let's go ahead and pull up the tweet. It says, this one's from Dane Miller. Quote, the Pac-12 is the deepest football conference in America this year, and it's the change my mind meme. So I've just got some of the teams listed here that, in my mind, are threats for the AP Top 25. Okay? Conference by conference. The SEC, you've got LSU, Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee. Those are my 4 that I would argue are your powerhouse teams. You're look at the SEC and you're confident in what those 4 teams can do. You go over to the Big Ten. You've got Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State. Wisconsin's a little bit of a question mark, but they did bring in Luke Fickell, so I am pretty confident in what he's able to do as a coach. Cincinnati fans can attest to that. So it's going to be interesting to see if he can bring Wisconsin back to life. You look at the Big 12, you've obviously got TCU. They lost a ton of pieces, but it's still TCU. Texas, Kansas State had a really impressive season last year. Can they build off of it? I think they can. Texas Tech, another really interesting team, but
Not
still.
to mention all the teams that they're adding.
That's 4. Right? That is only 4 there. There's 4 in the Big Ten. There's 4 in the SEC. In the ACC, there's even less because the ACC sucks ass. You've got Clemson, Florida State, UNC.
And Syracuse. Daniel Babers.
Even then, even if you wanted to throw in...
I mean, well, to be fair, I mean, Syracuse did start the season, 6-0 last year? Like, they were ranked at one point, I believe. Or so... I mean, they entered, but yeah, I mean, it's Syracuse.
And Joe brings up an interesting point that I am going to get to here in a second, but you look at the Pac-12 and you got USC, Washington, Oregon, Oregon State, and Utah. That would be 5. That is the most of any of those Power 5 conferences. Now, Joe brings up the point, not sure any Pac team would win the SEC West. That's not the question. The question isn't which conference has the best teams. The question is which conference has pretty much the deepest bag. Yeah. Now, I guess my question to you is, can those be 2 different things?
I think they can be 2 different things. I think the root of because Glenn's saying that he believes it because they're the only conference that seems to cannibalize itself. I think what you can say for sure is that the gap between the top and the bottom of the Pac-12, with the exception of schools like Stanford, is probably the smallest in between the top and the bottom of any given conference in the country. I think would probably be fair. But I am not ready to say it's deeper than the SEC. Like, I'm not ready for that. And I mean, the Big 12, like you mentioned all those schools. You didn't mention Cincinnati. You didn't mention BYU, Houston, UCF, who all throw kind of a wrench in all of that. So I'm hesitant to call them the deepest conference in the country, but I do think they'll give just about any conference a run for their money in that regard. Like, I do think, again, the gap between the top and the bottom is the smallest, and I think this is the conference that has the most number of teams who have a legitimate opportunity to win the conference. Like, I think that there's probably 5-6 teams in this conference where, like, I've been on the Oregon State train. Obviously, if USC or Utah win, no one's surprised there. Washington was ranked 2nd in the poll. There's Oregon. So, like, I think this conference has more teams that have an opportunity. Because, like, let's be real, Alabama or the SEC only has 2 teams that I think are going to win that conference. It's either going to be Alabama or Georgia in my mind. Same with the Pac-12.
You don't think LSU?
Or LSU, excuse me. Yeah, LSU has a chance there as well. Big Ten, that's probably going to be Ohio State, right? Yeah. So, like, so I do think that the SEC. I think the Pac-12 is the most entertaining conference in that regard. Like, any given game, anybody can win, and you're going to get, like, there's actual kind of mystery as far as who is going to be the best team.
But the only reason that it's entertaining is because there's so much parity.
Yeah, no, the parity I'm not denying at all. But in terms of the deepest, like, I don't know. I'm probably taking the 5th best SEC team versus the 5th best Pac-12 team.
Yeah,
and I would keep doing that until I'm probably taking Mizzou over Stanford. I'm hesitant to put any conference above the SEC. I'd put them above the Big Ten, though, for sure. Like, I don't think the Big Ten is a deep conference at all. You have Ohio State, you have Michigan. Outside of that, I'm sorry, I forgot to bring up Michigan earlier when I mentioned the Big Ten, but Michigan and like, those are the only 2 teams that I think are any kind of a real college football playoff threat, any kind of SEC or Big Ten championship threat. You get to the bottom of that conference. I mean, obviously they're going through a bunch of other stuff, but Northwestern, like HK, Nebraska has been embarrassing recently, and obviously they have Rule, but who cares about Rutgers? Like, I do think they're probably 2nd in this regard, if I'm being honest. Maybe 3rd behind the Big 12, but I can't put them ahead of the SEC.
The reason why I think the Pac-12 is the deepest conference this season, and again, this is just my personal opinion, talking about the storylines with the Pac-12 this year, is the quarterbacks, right? You look at the 5 quarterbacks on the 5 teams that I mentioned, a guy like Cam Rising, who we know is one of the most capable, underrated quarterbacks. I do think
the conference of quarterbacks
on a national level. You look at DJ Uiagalelei and the untapped potential that could hopefully, spark some really like fun games.
Yeah, I mean, even if he elevates that team marginally, it's a dangerous team.
And then Bo Nix, a guy who quite literally, he's had one of the most spectacular career resurgences in college football over the last decade. It's been awesome to watch what he was able to do last season. And I think he's going to have a great year this year, even without Kenny calling the plays. Then you got Washington and Michael Penix Jr., a guy who we know is super, super talented. And in reality, if he stays in the game against ASU last year and they win that game, we're talking about Washington potentially being a college football playoff 100%. Team. And then, you just have the Heisman winner, the guy that's projected to be the number 1 overall pick in next year's draft, Caleb Williams, who just, the pro comp is, to your point, the greatest quarterback of all time, and Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, and, as far as the quarterback play is concerned, I don't think it's even really much of a
But what would you say is the most important position on a football team?
Oh, yeah, it's a quarterback. Yeah, and so, I get that argument, right? Like, you have 3 different guys who have been in legitimate Heisman conversations, and Michael Penix Jr. At Indiana the year before he transferred, or not, I guess 2 years before he transferred, Caleb Williams and Bo Nix. And then, DJ, I'm not going to say he was a Heisman candidate, but he was a quarterback at Clemson, so there's always, that guy's kind of always a Heisman candidate.
Yeah.
Right? So you have guys who you probably have the best quarterbacks in the country, or at least the deepest quarterback pool in the country. So as far as that's concerned, I'm definitely inclined. I definitely would agree with you for sure.
Yeah. And again, I'm not this conversation I want to say it was Joe's point earlier, right? That the Pac-12 in terms of the SEC doesn't necessarily compare in the best, right? Deepest and best, completely different. If you want an example of that, just look at week 1 last season when Oregon got shit stomped by Georgia.
Yeah.
And then went on to have a phenomenal season with one of the best offenses in the nation. I believe they only scored 3 points against the Georgia defense. So, look, it is definitely not the best conference. I think it could be the most fun conference this season because of all of the quarterbacks, because of the parity. It's, I hope that the conference doesn't eat itself alive like it typically does. That way you get a little bit of Pac-12 representation in the college football playoff before the eventual expansion. But I will stand on the hill that this is the deepest conference solely because of the best quarterbacks are in this conference. That is, you can't argue it. The best quarterback, the best player in the country when it comes to college football is playing in Southern California.
Yeah.
And that in and of itself, we already mentioned Cam Rising and all the other guys. So I will stand on that hill that the Pac-12 is the deepest conference in the Power 5. Illegal Pete's, I would argue, is both the deepest and the best restaurant in Tempe. Guys, patio season means patio beers. It is hot as hell outside, okay? It is hot as hell. So go get yourself a beer at Illegal Pete's. Get some tacos. Enjoy the misters outside. It's a total vibe. Yeah, definitely high noons because they got some deals on those guys. Illegal Pete's is your go-to spot this summer. Kick back and enjoy an ice-cold marg or cool off with a bucket of high noons. 5 high noons for just $22.
It's like $4.50 per, I think. We did the math.
And if you've never had a high noon smack. They are so damn good.
They do go pretty crazy.
Don't forget to follow at Illegal Pete's on Instagram to stay updated on all their big events and deals going down this summer. Stay tuned on their stories to win free tickets to concerts you are dying to see, guys. Illegal Pete's is here to make this summer one for the books.
OG is helping us make the summer one for the books as well, because if you hadn't heard, you obviously hasn't been listening to the podcast because we talk about it all the damn time. They've got a special summer edition pink lemonade gummy.
It's so good.
It's so good. Like, it honestly, we were raving about the orange creamsicle for like a year. It took over, like, easy. It took over as my best. No, not easy, because the orange creamsicle is amazing. They're all good.
Yeah, I haven't had a bad flavor.
No, oh my god, no. Like, no. I say it all the time. If it was non-medicated, I'd eat a whole bag like candy in one sitting.
That's fair.
I could do that with it being medicated, but I probably would forget where I am because you're supposed to take these things responsibly. But yeah, OG's has something for everybody. Sleep edition gummies for people who struggle to fall asleep or stay asleep. They're happy balance strawberries and cream with the CBD THC 1-to-1 ratio. All their flavors, their fruits, their creams. Like I said, they're pink lemonade. So you got to check them out. Like I said, OG's, they simply don't miss when it comes to flavor and effect. So get your pink lemonade gummies while you can. Check out OG's online at ogsbrands.com and on Instagram at ogsbrands. You could also find their products at your local dispensary, but you must be 21 years or older to purchase.
Yes, you do. Shawn, before we get out of here, got one final topic. One more time. Leah, do you know what that is? What animal that is?
That's a goat.
That is a goat.
Damn straight.
It's because we're talking about Léon Marchand. He is, in my personal opinion, going to go down as the greatest swimmer of all time.
Berets, baguettes, and bodies. He's taking bodies. He's the greatest swimmer in the world.
If you didn't know, guys, Arizona State's Léon Marchand broke Michael Phelps' last
Heard of him?
individual
Heard of
world
him? Maybe
record.
probably. I don't know the greatest swimmer of all time. Heard of him?
He broke his last individual world record to win the world title in the men's 400-meter individual medley. Like,
He's a dog.
and he's only 21 years old.
And then he's going to do the Olympics in his home country.
Which
France.
feel bad for.
Why show up? If you're
I
anybody
feel
else?
bad for Team USA.
Why show up if you're anybody? It's the first time that I'm ever going to be rooting for somebody not the U.S. in swimming, because I'm all the way in. I am mon ami. I am a Léon Marchand fan. Bonjour.
I need
Merci.
that. I need that at all times. Yeah,
Oui, oui.
like it.
Well, let me start crowing the
Talk about Léon Marchand
oui oui.
and what he was able to do, like just at Arizona State.
Yeah, I mean, he's the most dominant male swimmer in the world. It's not even a question.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he's going to win golds at the Olympics. It's so awesome to be able to call him a Sun Devil.
Pretty sure he didn't lose a race last year,
I don't think he did. No.
which is
I mean, he was kicking ass as a freshman, and last year he was unbelievable.
just think about that though. Think about that in terms of like, let's go fighting, for example.
like,
right?
Yeah.
It
It was like
think
that.
about it.
Remember when we went to watch the fights, and that guy was like one of the biggest favorites in UFC history?
Yeah.
And it was like, why even
Why even show up?
bother? Because you're
simply
you're
aren't that
delusional
guy.
if you think you have a chance. You're
It is-
straight up delusional.
I want to equate it to fighting, but like it's not just a 1v1, right? Léon
Yeah.
Marchand's not just
No,
swimming
because
against
in
one
fighting,
guy.
you have a puncher's chance.
Yeah.
There is no puncher's chance.
This is like if every single race last year was just like, okay, you got to get in the octagon and fight 8 other guys, and he won every single time.
Yeah, it's like playing. It's like being at a casino, and he is the house. Like, you might think you have a chance,
But you don't.
and you might have a lead at one point, maybe, or something early on. But at the end of the day, the house always wins. And I'm not talking. I mean, shout out Grant House, but the house in this situation is Léon Marchand. He always wins.
Yeah.
And it is a foolish endeavor to bet against him.
And you know who deserves some fucking love? Bob Bowman.
Yeah.
Because not
Wanna talk
only
about
is he
dog.
coaching Léon Marchand to greatness, but did you know who Michael Phelps' coach was?
Oh.
Bob Bowman.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, he's just the
just-
greatest swimming coach of all
Literally, he is a goat breeder. That's all he does.
He's a goat breeder?
He breeds goats.
time. Oh my gosh. Yeah, he is. I mean, look, there needs to be a statue of him when it comes
Honestly.
to Team USA and swimming in the facilities, whatever. Like,
Yeah.
Bob Bowman.
I mean, he genuinely
is a
one of the
legend.
like at this point, he's going to be like one of the most influential people as far as. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend I'm deep in the swimming community. So maybe I'm talking out of the side of out of my neck. But like the reality is if he's coaching Michael Phelps, who is the greatest swimmer of all time, and Léon Marchand, who is like he's Shohei Ohtani. He's Michael, or he's Patrick Mahomes. Like, he's the guy that the only reason you can't call him the GOAT yet is because he hasn't been doing it long enough.
yeah.
Like, so, and Bob Bowman coached both of them. He's got to be one of the most influential coaches, at least in male swimming in the last decade, last
It's like
century.
if Bill Belichick
Or this century.
got Caleb Williams
Yeah.
and then Patrick Mahomes and he had Tom Brady.
Yeah.
That's literally what he does. He's just like,
he's a goat breeder.
Our last goat, he just dominated the sport for 20 years. Why don't we just go get
Yeah,
another
this
one?
goat's retired.
All right,
Let's- we need a new one.
this goat is French. That's pretty much what
Le
Bob
goat.
does. Le goat, if you will.
Put that on a t-shirt.
Guys,
Le
that
goat.
is going to do it for our show today. Before you head out, leave a like button, hit that subscribe button, and give us a follow at PHNX_Sun Devils. You can follow me on social at Anthony_Tochi. You can follow Shawn DePaz at Shawn_DePaz.
Ooh. I mean, a fan of B Ward as always.
There we go. Guys, like I said, we will be back 2 p.m. tomorrow, and we're going to be talking about the Arizona State offense, which is going to be damn fun. But in the meantime, go get yourself a marg and enjoy the rest of your Monday. Peace.